We're live with the ladies. Thanks for joining. So let's do a, I'm going to do an introduction on my screen on the top left. I got Brea-stuff. Raise your hand, Brea-stuff. And I just want to say that I nicknamed her Brea-stuff.
You did. And why did you nickname me Brea-stuff?
Because Brea-stuff sounds like free stuff, and everyone loves free stuff. And everyone loves Brea-stuff, especially because we're living in South Provo, and everyone in South Provo loves free stuff. But you got to be careful when you text it. You have to do a hyphen after the Brea and the stuff. Otherwise, if it's one word, sometimes it looks weird the way you read it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now in my bottom left, I got MegZ. So I don't know who nicknamed you MegZ, but
I don't know.
that's what you're called.
That's me.
Then the bottom right, we got little Steffers.
What up?
And who named her little Steffers? Brea?
That was me.
That was great. That was great.
They're big Steffers.
No, there was Big Al.
Oh yeah,
We should have got Al on this call, huh?
we should
Yeah.
have. Oh, she's gonna be so sad.
Yeah, we had Big Al. Once we went on a trip, me and Big Al and Brea-stuff, to go see little Steffers.
Yes.
The little Steffers gave me a nickname. Do you remember that?
Timmy Pants.
Yeah.
Timmy No Pants.
I'm like, I need a nickname. She'd be like, Timmy Pants. Like, wow, that was fast. All right, well, I'd like to thank you for taking time away from your husbands and your children for me.
Gladly.
And to start off, this is going to be very difficult for me. I got to be honest. I feel like Jacob of old, whose soul was weighed down and very grievous with the topic, because our theme is going to be women's health.
Right up my alley.
So, Brea, what was your master's?
Public health.
Public health.
Public
And
health.
sometimes you had to teach women's health in your class, right?
I did teach women's health.
Yeah, I remember you telling me all kinds of
Hey,
stories
the men need to be educated.
you're showing slides of all kinds of diseases, of pictures.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't like that kind of stuff.
But the more you know.
Yeah. And Megan's is a nurse, so she knows about women's health. And Steffers is a woman.
So I just goes with being a woman.
Okay, so here's where we're going to start out. Brea, you might not know the story, but me and Steffers and MegZ were in Kenya, Africa. And we were on a safari. There were 10 people in our group. We were split up, 5 people in one Land Cruiser, 5 people in another Land Cruiser. Frere and I bought and brought walkie-talkies so we could talk to each other in the 2 Land Cruisers, which sometimes we didn't need because Frere talked so freaking loud that usually you could hear him yelling from the other one anyway. Especially when you're supposed to be quiet because there's wildlife. You can hear Frere yelling at some elephant. And I'm yelling, shut up, across the way at him because our guys told us we were supposed to be quiet, but Frere never was. Anyway.
Still saw animals though. That's fine.
So anyway, we're cruising along, and all of a sudden I hear Frere. He's like, Tim, Tim, on the walkie-talkie. I'm like, what? And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm dying right now. And he was just laughing his head off. I'm like, what? He's like, oh my gosh, Steffers just talking about the dirty 30s. You remember that, Steph?
Yes, I do.
So Frere was in the same Land Cruiser as Steffers, and you can jump in and cut me off, Steph, anytime you want.
Okay, you go for it.
But
I want
I
to
know that
tell it.
his 30th birthday party, or his 30th birthday was coming up, and they were talking about it, and he goes, yep, I'm gonna join the dirty 30s. And Steffers like, what? He's like, dirty 30s. She's like, no, you can't be a part of that. That's only for women. He's like, what are you talking about? And then, Steph, you can explain what you explained
So I
to her.
explained to him about hormone levels, that boys peak at like 19 and women peak about 30, which is why when a woman turns 30, it's called the dirty 30s because their hormones basically almost surpass a guy in their 30s. And Rare went like,
He just thought it was a phrase that rhymed.
yeah.
And
And so did I.
He didn't know where it came from.
Yeah, so did I. So did Megan. But then Chrissy and Cassidy Baker back you up. They're like, oh, yeah, it's real. And then they all start talking about it in front of Frere.
We talked about how girls just want you a little bit more in their 30s.
So they're like, oh, yeah, it's so hard. And I guess Steffers is like, I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you guys do it from 19.
Yeah, I did. Like, this is miserable. I don't know how you guys even survived.
So Frere's getting a women's health lesson on the safari. Just having his mind blown, laughing his head off. So on that trip, we decided that Steffers' favorite church hymn was Master, My Hormones Are Raging.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Steph.
Hey,
Okay.
what are your other favorite hymns, Tim? I was trying to remember them the other day.
My other favorite hymns.
Yeah.
I like the one that goes, I love to see the temple because I go 5 times a week. That's my only self-righteous one that comes to mind. Okay, that was a good story.
Steph, I didn't know. I hadn't heard that story before.
We did a lot of education on that.
Yeah, I remember Aubrey was like also like, what? Like our minds were blown.
Because you and Aubrey were like 27, huh? Or 28.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
said,
did
oh,
our own
guys,
thing.
girls and guys, you just wait. You girls need to wait. It gets worse.
Or better.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
how you look at it. That's right.
So then there's all these murmurings and whisperings in the dark corners of the Airbnb of people trying to confirm these facts if it's really true or not about women's hormones.
Yeah. And then we're in the parking lot and wait, what happened? Like everyone was like out there chatting and I think Tim, you
I
confronted
brought it
Steph.
up. I brought it up and was bugging Steph about it, and then she deflected it and tried to aim the blame to you.
And she's like, and Megan can't wait or something. And I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
no,
Megan says she can't wait.
Exactly what? I knew I was
So-
going to have that down.
So here's a follow-up for you.
Okay.
So over the next few years, the next few girls that Frere dated, it was confirmed to him firsthand that that was true.
A little more forward.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but whatever.
Hey, you young guys, you should date some of the older women. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, next women's health topic, we're gonna go to Megan. So Megan, let's tell them your number one story about me.
Okay, well,
start out with Katie Powers.
Well, okay, so Katie Powers is a nurse. She is a midwife now, actually, so she knows a lot about women's health. And actually, so we met in nursing school, and we like had this like rotation at the VA, and so we had to do like these rotations, like through the colonoscopy, like the endoscopy lab where they do colonoscopies. And there was like one of the workers there was like, he was just like a little, I don't know. So he was married, had kids, but he like loved Katie. Like he would bring her like curry and stuff for lunch. Like he would like make curry at home and like bring it to her like the days that she was there. And anyways, he called her like, he'd always tell her like she was like the ultimate woman or something. Anyway, so one day, like she was in the lab, and they were like pulling out the camera for the colonoscopy, and she was like standing kind of like far back, and then like pulled it, and at the very end, like the poo like flew off of it and like hit her in the face, and she just like froze and like didn't know, I don't know, she didn't like say anything, she just like hit her face, and then she just like kind of like went away and like wiped it off. Anyways. So the VA was just like this really weird experience. But so I think I was like telling Tim that story about the poo, and then we were at Institute, and Tim was like, I've got a story about poo too. And I can't even remember. I don't like remember like hardly any details of your original story, but we're like, after Institute, there's like 400 people there, you know, everyone's just like walking around. Tim just starts telling Katie this story.
Okay, so I'll tell the story, and then you can cut in whenever you want, Megan.
Okay.
So I'm talking to Megan and Katie Powers, the one that got the shrapnel on the cheek. And so I'm like, well, if it makes you feel any better, Katie, one time, and then I start to proceed into the story, and the context is, I am not a cowboy, but sometimes I like to feel like I am. Like, because my cousins live on a ranch, I've learned a decent amount about, you know, horses and cows and stuff, more than the average city person. So I don't really know that much, but I act like I know that much. So I'm like, well, okay, if it makes you feel any better. One time, I was artificially inseminating a cow, and I had a glove on that came all the way up my arm, and I had my arm all the way up this cow's rectum, and then I pulled it out and realized there was a hole in the glove. So I took the glove off, and I had a big green stain of cow poo on my arm. And she looks at me skeptically, and she's like, why was your arm up the cow's rectum? And so I'm thinking to myself, she's questioning me and thinks that I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about. But I do know what I'm talking about, and I'm about to explain why. So I said, Oh, actually, no, I didn't say I was artificially inseminating. I just said that I had my arm up a cow's rectum. And she's like, why'd you have your arm up a cow's rectum? And I said, I was trying to artificially inseminate it. And she's like, that's when she looked at me. And she's like, why would you put your arm up there to artificially inseminate a cow? And I'm like, well, good question. Let me tell you. It's because you put your hand in this hole, and then below it is another hole, and I'm avoiding any like medical terminology here. And then you feel through this like membrane, this like sac, and then you have this long like needle of stuff inside of it that you put in the lower hole, and you feel around from the higher hole of where to inject it, and then you can inject the stuff. And so I'm feeling like extremely proud of myself because I know what's going on here. And she's like, oh, okay. So 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, I'm looking at her like she's a moron. And I'm like, 1, 2. She's like 1, 2, 3. And I'm thinking, what is she talking about? Like, I'm like, no, that's a bull. Like bulls pee from under their stomach, not cows. It's 1, 2. And she's like, well, where's the third? And I'm like, what? She's like, where's the third hole? And I have this like realization, and I'm sure Megan can remember, because I could feel my facial expression turn from like, I'm confident, I'm the man, I'm a cowboy, I know what I'm talking about, to like all of a sudden the wheels started turning, and I was like, oh, wait a second. She's talking about female cows, which are mammals. She's a mammal. Women are mammals. She's a nurse. Holy crap, I don't know what's going on here. And then I just go, there's 3? And Megan and Katie lose it. And I fall on the floor. And we're at Institute, like the post-game show of Institute. There's people everywhere. And I'm rolling around on the ground, just saying over and over again, there's 3? Just have my mind blown. It was so crazy.
Just like rolling over.
They're just laughing at me.
3 over and over for like a while.
So I go home, and I have not been home for more than 5 minutes, and every single one of Megan's roommates is trying to call me. Like my phone is just ringing off the hook. I just keep silencing it. I'm getting texts. I'm getting phone calls. And I know that I'll just like want to just make fun of me. I'm like, this is nuts. I still have to process this because this is crazy to me. Because I was 30 something years old. And so I try to bring it up to my roommates because I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys. And I start telling them, and none of them wanted to even hear what I had to say. Like as soon as I got into the details, no one said a word. They just left. Everyone just ignored me, just left the room. So I just sitting there by myself looking at all these phone calls coming in. I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone right now. I can't handle this.
But then the best part is when I feel like you're at our house like sometime. I feel like like Tyler and Mom was there, some of your other roommates, or I don't know, but like when the story was like retold, like nobody got it, like nobody like thought it was funny because like they didn't know either.
Well, and you and me, Meg, we retold it to Brent and Frere, and neither of them got it either.
That's true, yeah.
And Brent's the real cowboy. So then, so I was retelling it to like Chrissy and Allie Z and all, like every time I told this to girls, they all just ridicule me. They're like, what did you think? Did you think that when we were pregnant, that when we went #1 and went through our baby and all this kind of stuff? I'm like, no, I didn't think about it. Well, what did you think that after we have a kid that we could never like hold our pee for the rest of our lives? I'm like, no, I never thought about it. Well, didn't you go to health class? Yeah, I went to health class, but do you think I paid attention to that part? Are you serious? I would pay attention, like, not like I'm gonna like draw up flashcards and have my mom quizzing me on the women's health section. Like, yeah, maybe I learned it, but
I remember hearing the story too when
Yeah.
they retold it to me. It was hilarious. And then
Yeah.
all the girls were like, "Did you know that Tim didn't know?"
so here's the thing. I was so ticked that everyone was like making me out to be the moron. I put Megan on a quest to do a poll, a survey among other males. And
Like one person knew.
it was one, you questioned 18 guys and one person knew. And it was the smartest guy we knew, Adam Wilson,
Adam Wilson.
who was the one that married Katie Powers. But later,
I don't think you're alone in that knowledge at the time.
yeah, so later, one of my roommates is like, what was that one story you were talking about? So they finally had enough time to process and get enough curiosity to look into it further. But
Yeah, it might not have been. Sorry if Tyler Lamont is watching this. It might not have been Tyler that we had told,
Well-
but maybe I'm just like picturing.
well,
Him.
Tyler was one of my roommates that ignored me and walked out of the room when I was
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Hawk didn't even know. Well, whatever. I can leave Hawk out of it, but he has 6 brothers and no sisters, and he didn't know anything for a long time. Okay. All right, I got one more women's health story. At least one. So Steffers and I went on a trip to castrate sheep.
Yes.
And Steffers, you can cut me off anytime you want here.
Well, I just remember because we had heard about somebody that castrated sheep with their teeth.
Yeah.
Where did we hear that?
Well, I'd always heard it from my.
Oh, you were telling me that story when we were driving up to go castrate sheep.
And so we went up and met Cowboy Mark, and he castrated all the sheep with his teeth, just like you'd heard.
Well, no. So Tim had told me this story about this guy, somebody that castrated sheep with their teeth. So when we got up there, we were like, hey, we know a guy that castrates sheep with their teeth. And so Tim dared and bet him or something to do it. And he was like, okay, I'll do it. And he did it.
Yeah, all of them.
Yes, all of them. With his teeth.
Probably the biggest, second biggest regret of my life is that I didn't get a chance to do it. I asked him if I could, and he's like, okay, I will, but like, let's crank through a lot of these and get them done. And then like towards the end, we can switch places because I already had another job in the assembly line. And before we knew it, we were finished and there were no more, so I couldn't do it.
Well, he was castrating with a sheep. Then you were clipping their ears, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to brand them. But by the time Tim would clip their ears would shoot blood, and they'd come to me, and I was splattered from head to toe.
Yeah. So you branded them with paint,
I
right?
branded them with paint. It's
And
like green paint.
instead of like giving them a little tag in the ear, they just clip a little off so they could tell it was their sheep if they ever got mixed with other sheep. But sometimes I would go too far and get a vein that
And
squirt
it was
blood.
And I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, I've got this guy up ahead of me. He's going into the sheep with his teeth. And the sheep are coming to me, and I was getting splattered. I was like, how did I get myself here?
Okay, and then what happened to you and your own women's health?
So now that we know how much Tim likes women's health, I was up there, and that certain time of month was not supposed to come for a little bit, and it came a little early. And I'm sitting there covered in blood with branding these sheep, and cramps hit, and I get cramps that are very, very bad if I don't get Advil in me like immediately. And I get them so bad that like I'll throw up. We were in the middle of nowhere, and I was like, I can't say anything. I can just like, I'll just do this. It'll be fine. I'll just get some Advil. So I'm like, hey, Tim, do you have any Advil? Because Advil was the only thing that worked. And he was like, no, I got some like aspirin in the truck. So I'm like, okay. So I go over there and I take the aspirin, but the aspirin doesn't do a dang thing. So I actually throw up behind the truck, and I'm inside, and I am like dying. I am like, oh my gosh, I am in so much pain. And Tim comes, he's like, what is wrong? And I'm like white-faced, and I'm like, I need medicine now.
We were on a lunch break.
Yeah.
Me, Cowboy Mark, and his like 3 Peruvian illegal workers. And she disappeared. And you were probably in the fetal position crying for half hour before we found you, right?
Yeah, which is because my pain just kept like escalating. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, I just have to like bear through this. And I was hiding behind the truck, and I literally like I threw up behind the truck. I was like, I'm in so much pain. I need to get out of here. But we had taken a 4-wheel ride into this. We were literally in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Tim, I need medicine. And Tim is like, oh my gosh. And he sees me. I'm like in like the fetal position, dying. And he's like, what do we do? What do we do? And he's like, all right, we had to go to the car. But how far away was the car? It was really far.
I think the car was probably a 20-minute ride on the 4-wheeler. And then once we got to the car, it was another 20 minutes to the town where there was a store.
Yeah, so we were like almost an hour out, and he was like, get on the 4-wheeler. So I get on the 4-wheeler, and I'm just like ducking my head on Tim. I'm like dying, and Tim is going so fast.
And it's a very bumpy trail, so we're just hitting bumps and hitting rocks, and she's just going up and down, and like squeezing me.
And Tim is like, I've never seen this before. What do I do?
I was so scared.
He was so scared. He's like, what is going on? We finally get into the car, and I'm like this in this car, and I'm like rocking, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like squeezing, and he was just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, Tim, it's like, what can I do? I'm like, tell me a story. Get my mind off it. Just get my mind off it. I was just so I don't puke again. Like and Tim was just like, I don't know first.
So
he was white-faced. He was as white-faced as I was, not knowing what the heck was going on.
So instead, I plug in my iPod. I'm like, what kind of tunes do you want? And she requested Michael Jackson.
Yeah. So we get in, and he's thinking, well, we're going to have to go home. Like, we're going to have to leave this place. We finally get into town. We, like, run into this little teeny, what was it, like a gas station type thing. I finally get my medication. I'm like, it'll take a little bit to kick in. I got everything that I needed. And finally we like get back to the car. It starts kicking in, and then I was totally fine. And we went back.
You were buying all kinds of stuff in that store, Steffers. You buy these like heating pad things, like these little things. So I'm like, this is way above my pay grade here. I'm just gonna like.
I was like, this is really gonna regret taking me. I needed a heating pad for the cramps. I got all my girl stuff that I needed. But we were still like camping in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and she's in the bathroom in this gas station for a while, and there's a lady standing in line to use the bathroom. And after like 10 minutes, I walk over and I'm like, she's sick. She might be a while. So now I'm like on edge about women's health, you know, like this stuff's freaking me out. And after the trip, Steffers tells the story to Brea. Do you remember Brea?
No. I remember hearing the story, but I don't know what you're going to say next.
Okay. So Steffers tells the story to Brea, and then after that, I'm talking to Brea, and Bree's like, yeah, Steffers told me about the trip. You know, like with castrating the sheep and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, she did? She's like, yeah, she was telling me about how she was like in this pain and like the cramps hit her and you had to take her to the store and all this stuff. And then it was just, she felt sorry for you. I'm like, yeah, it was crazy. And I felt like way sorry for her too, because like obviously she was in pain. And then Brea goes, yeah, Steffers said that there was blood everywhere. And I just like stopped. And I'm like, oh. And all of a sudden Bree's like, oh, I mean like blood from the sheep.
Don't go too pale-faced.
I can't handle this anymore.
Oh my gosh.
He's never gonna see me the same again.
That would have been a good cover up though.
Yeah. You'd never have known.
Wait till we all start telling our childbirth stories.
Okay. Let's take a break from that topic. And Brea, if you wouldn't mind telling me the best story you have ever told me.
The dog story.
Yes.
So I have to give credit. This is actually from my friend, my roommate. Her name is Whitney.
And where did she hear it? It was like her cousin or something?
Yeah, it was like a close friend or a cousin. Like it was somebody that she knew really close.
Because
it happened while I was roommates with her. Like it was a recent story.
Yes, I just want to say it because every time I told the story, people didn't believe me. They're like, who's the source? I'm like, my friend Bree's roommate's cousin.
It's like,
they're like, no one believed me. Like, that's not real. I'm like, I promise you this is real. And I even called you like 6 months later. I'm like, Brea, people are questioning me. You have to promise to me that this is real because I only tell true stories. And you told me it was true, so I kept telling it.
The true story. So my roommate, Whitney, and I were living in DC. And she had a cousin living in New York, in Manhattan. And in Manhattan, everyone lives in apartments. And the only way to get around, most people don't have cars. You take the subway for everything. And so this cousin of hers, let's say it's a cousin, we think it's a cousin, had a dog. And the dog ended up dying, which is sad. But the dog ended up dying in her apartment. And so they called the vet, like, what do we do? And they're like, okay, just bring the dog in and we'll take care of it. And she's like, okay. And then she hangs up and she's like, how do I get the dog to the vet? She's like, I can't take a taxi. I feel weird bringing a dead dog onto a taxi.
And she has no yard, so she can't do a proper
burial. Can't bury it in the yard. She has to take it somewhere. So she ends up putting the dog into a duffel bag. And she is going to take the duffel bag to the vet. It's a heavy duffel bag. I don't know exactly how big this dog was.
You told me it was a medium to large size dog.
Yeah, I want to say like 80 pounds or something. Maybe that's high, but it was a big dog. It wasn't like a little chihuahua, okay? It wasn't like one you take on the airplane with you. So she has this dog, she's dragging this duffel bag, and she makes it to the subway, and she's on the subway. People are coming on and off, and she's just feeling like pretty nervous and anxious about having this dead dog in the duffel bag. And at one point, this guy is like, so what do you have in the bag? And she's too embarrassed to say, I have a dead dog. She's not going to say anything about this dog. She doesn't want anyone to touch the bag. They don't want to feel what's inside. So she's like, oh, it's just like my laptop. I'm going to work. And he's like, huh, right? That's a lot. What? She's like, oh, I just have some other like just equipment in there. I think that's all she told him. Is that how you remember it?
The way you told me is she was lugging it and trying to get it into the subway, and the guy helped her, and he grabbed the bag.
He picked up the bag, and it was super heavy.
The bag.
And he
picked it up. I couldn't remember if that was somebody else or if it was the same person.
Yeah, so you said that he lugged the bag in for her. She said thanks. She was sheepish, and then she said it was her laptop and book.
He was like, wow, this is a heavy bag. Like, what do you have in there? And she's trying to think. She's like, oh my gosh, like what can I tell him that would be heavy? And so she's like, it can't just be like work stuff. So she's like,
a laptop. It has to be
laptops and some like electronic stuff. She's like trying to think of heavy things.
Because he had carried it on.
Yeah. It's like, what is in this bag? It's really heavy.
So they keep going on the subway. And at one of the next stops, the guy who helped carry her on, after they had the conversation of what's in the bag, that it's a laptop and maybe some speakers, some electronics, he takes the bag right as the doors are closing the subway to get out and takes the bag with him. So he's trying to steal the equipment. And she's just like, he just took my dead dog. And as the door's closing, he looks back at her and is like trying to run. And she's just like, see you later.
You're doing me.
Thanks for taking it off my hands.
Oh my gosh.
Instead of getting a laptop, ended up getting a duffel bag with a dead dog in New York City.
Can you imagine when the guy like finally made it to where he was safe and thought that he like totally scored, that he opens it up and is like, what? This isn't a laptop. This is a medium to large size dead dog.
The worst thing though is like the dog is like one thing, right? Like it's not like if you have electronics, you're gonna have multiple pieces. Like it's gonna feel different. I mean, this guy obviously was not that bright.
Oh my gosh.
But the lesson is don't steal things from people on the subway. Because you never know what you're gonna get.
Nice. Okay. That was a good one. Thanks, Bree. Okay, I have one. I should have got Big Al on the phone for this one because this one is when Bree and Big Al went to go visit Steffers when she lived in Palo Alto. And they had all been there before, except for I hadn't been to San Francisco before. And so they were driving me around. You guys were taking me around the city, and you took me to Castro Street. And what's at Castro Street?
It is a very popular street for those that are gay.
That's like the central spot, right?
That's like their street.
So they have all these shops and all this stuff that are catered for.
It's a very rainbow pride friendly place.
Yeah.
Very rainbow friendly.
So do you guys know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Do you, Megan?
No.
So they drove me down the street, down Castro Street, and then they drove me back up, and it's on a hill. So when we get to the top, we're looking down, and Bree says, oh my gosh, there's so many flags on this street, because there's these rainbow flags like every building all the way down. So there's tons of flags. And Big Al is like, Bree, I can't believe you'd say that. Because Big Al thought the Bree said flags without the L.
There were a lot of them on the street.
I do remember that.
No. We're dying. We're laughing so hard. And then a couple of days later, like when our trip is over, we're like reminiscing of the funny things, or like, so we brought that up of when Big Al thought that Bree said that. And I'm like, yeah, Big Al's gonna go home and tell everyone that Bree's a gay basher. And Big Al misunderstood me, and she didn't think I said basher. She thought I said the swear word that starts with B that sounds like basher.
Oh my god.
Like I was gonna go home, like we're gonna go home and tell people that about Bree.
Oh my god.
It's funny because it's language that we would never use. Oh.
That actually does remind me, speaking of mishearing things, Bree, you have the best misunderstood song lyrics. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, I'll say a song and you tell me what you used to think it said.
Okay.
All I want to do is have some fun. By
I
Sheryl Crow.
I can't say it without laughing. So when I was younger, like when did that song come out? We were like in elementary school. I thought it was all, I can't do it. I'm going to laugh. All I want to do is hooked on phonics. Because that had just come out, the like phonics, like hooked on phonics, like those commercials. Do you guys remember those commercials?
Yeah.
I was singing around, all I want to do is hooked on phonics.
Okay, here's another one. You guys know that song that says he's killing me softly with his song?
I don't know if anyone knows the right lyrics to that one.
Yeah, well, what do you think Bree used to think it said?
Do I have to say what I thought it was?
Yes.
Oh, you didn't prepare me for this. I thought it was he's killing me softly with his tongue.
So, the only way I could figure out how you could softly kill someone with your tongue is if you covered their mouth with your hand and then you plug their nose with your tongue.
Oh my god.
Well, I mean, it's soft. Like, I don't know. These are songs from like childhood. This wasn't like, last year.
Well, when you told it to me, I thought it was like recent. I didn't realize it was when you were a kid.
One of my best friends from elementary school, she was going to play this song for her the 5th grade talent show. And she had this whole dance choreographed. If you guys did elementary talent shows, I mean, they're, anyway. So she was like, listen to this song. And I was listening and I was like, you can't do that song at school. Like, I don't think that's allowed. She's like, what do you mean? And so I was like, well, what do you think the lyric says? And she's like, this one I can't say without laughing either. She said, I can't do it. I want to dance. Sorry. I want to dance dislegged is what she thought the song was, which is like impossible. How do you dance dislegged? That doesn't even make sense. The song actually said, I want to dance with you naked. And she was like an innocent, like what, 5th grade's like 10 years old or something, like she just thought it was a great song and didn't really think about the lyrics until we misheard them.
That reminds me of a story. So Corey White and I, when we'd be in cars, like on road trips, we would do accents with our hands to the lyrics. And we would try to do it in sync, even though we'd never practiced or whatever. It's just like the first time we're listening to the words off the cuff. We're just doing whatever the song says. As the lyrics go, we act stuff out with our hands, and we like try to see if we can do it in sync. And we're pretty good at it. Especially once you get to like the chorus, the second or third time, like we're totally synchronized, total harmony, like we've been rehearsing for hours. So this one time, we were going to Salt Lake. Hawk was driving, and Megan's old roommate Morgan was in shotgun, and Corey and I were in the back seat, and we're doing this to the music. And every once in a while, Hawk would just randomly change the station, so the song would switch, and we'd have to keep doing it. And they're watching us in the mirrors and laughing at us. And this Katy Perry song comes on, some song about California. What's that song called? California Girls.
Yeah.
So we're doing that, and it's like we're going along. We're like doing short shorts and bikinis on top, and we're doing all these like motions and stuff, all synchronized. And after the chorus, a new verse starts, and the song goes, 6 on the beach. We both did 6, like perfectly synchronized together. And it goes, on the beach. And then we realized that it didn't say 6. So we synchronized, like both of us, and you like stop and look at each other in like total harmony. Like we synchronized our own reaction to our song. And of course we stopped at that point. And our friends in the front were watching us, laughing at how stupid we were because we thought she said 6 on the beach.
Oh my god. You should bring Corey on here and like,
And do it.
give some
hand.
yeah, give some hand choreograph.
One time we were driving to Utah from Tulsa, and we probably did that for like 4 hours straight, where we just danced with our hands to songs. And then we followed it up by about 2 hours of both of us impersonating Hawk to each other. We were pretending we were Hawk, having a conversation with Hawk. Okay, I got a couple more, and then I'll let you guys go. So, I think, let's see. Let's talk about men's health for just a second. Someday we'll get Megan back in for more men's health story, but I won't put her on the spot today.
Can I make a comment though? About
Yeah.
when I worked at the hospital, like whenever I would get done with a shift or like the next day, Tim would be like, "How was work? How many naked men did you see?" That was like that was his question. Like every time. Like 2,
Yeah.
3,
Yeah. It was usually about 2. 2 is seems to be average.
average, yeah.
So I don't really want to see a naked man, and I don't want to see a man in a Speedo. But my travels have taken me all across the world where beaches are predominantly populated by men in Speedos. And so usually I just take pictures of them, and I think it's funny and it's weird. And why would you ever wear a Speedo in public? And no one should see a man's thighs that high on their body. But one time I decided to buy a Speedo because sometimes, the little mesh stuff in a men's swimsuit just, it's not good enough. And I'm sure all of you have been swimming with a guy and their swimsuit ends up riding low in the back. And you see, stuff you probably don't want to see. So me being conscientious of that, I thought, well, if I wear a Speedo under my swimsuit when I'm swimming, or if I'm at the beach or whatever, if my swimsuit sags low, there's not going to be a plumber crack and everyone's going to be grateful. So I go to Big 5 Sporting Goods and go to some swimming section and find myself a Speedo. And I go to the checkout. That's the only thing I have. So it's like, put it on the little conveyor belt. And I'm in my 20s, and the girl cashier is a girl in her 20s. So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm buying a Speedo. And she like rings it up, and I finally break the silence, and I'm like, I'm gonna wear something over that, just so you know. She's like, oh, okay, cool, nice, whatever. She's like, a lot of old men come in here and buy these. So I take it on my vacation to when I went to Kenya with our group of friends, and we went to this resort. There was like an all-inclusive resort that was pretty cheap. We went to for the first couple days. So we're hanging out with our group of friends at this pool, and there's an old, leathery, wrinkly, way tanner than he should be man just lounging on a Speedo the whole time next to us. You guys remember that? This dude is always there, just worshiping the sun with his leathery skin in a Speedo. So we're posing and taking pictures with him in the background and stuff and like making fun of it. And I had to go up to my room for some reason. And well, let's see. I think it was the next day. It was the second day. People were going to go meet down at the pool. And I told them I'd meet there after breakfast. So I go into the bathroom and I'm changing. And I put my Speedo on and I'm getting my swimsuit to put it on. And I look up and I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror in a Speedo. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I look ridiculous. You know, I got like a 1 foot tan line on my thighs. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. I gotta show up to the pool like this. I'm gonna surprise my friends before anyone can get their camera out. My shorts are coming on. Like, there's no risk here. Like, high reward, no risk. So I have this plan out. So I'm holding my swimsuit in my hands. I walk out of my room. It's probably like 100 yards to the pool. I walk down the stairs and I turn onto the sidewalk, and Steffers walks around the corner, and we're confronted. So I'm just like, oh crap. And Steffers is like, what? I'm like, Steffers, this is a joke. I promise this is a joke. And so Steffers walks down with me. I'm like, Steffers, you have to promise me right now, you cannot take a picture of me. I made her promise. She's like, okay. So she promises. So Steffers is in league with me now for the joke. So we're going to walk down, turn the corner, walk in the gate, freak everyone out. Within 5 seconds, my shorts are going to be on. No problem. So we walk down, and then we take a left. And I have a straight shot at the pool, which I'm not expecting anyone to be in the pool yet. I assume they're all just going to be laying out on the lawn chairs where they shouldn't be able to see me yet. But I turn the corner, and there's one person in the pool, and that person is making eye contact with me, and it's Megan. And Megan says out loud, oh no. So all of our friends who are sitting on the side of the pool can see the side of Megan, who's looking towards me, and Megan just says, oh no. So everyone's on high alert. She totally blows my cover. So when I come around the corner, everyone's just staring, waiting to see what's gonna happen, and it's me. Cassidy Baker's got her camera out in like 1 second. So I'm scrambling and like trying to like have no proof or evidence of what's going on here. And I wish I could say that was the last time that I did that.
Yeah, you have it like on every single trip now. I feel like it works into it,
It's never ever planned. It's always spur of the moment when I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I gotta stop changing in front of mirrors, I guess.
Oh my gosh.
That is documented, that moment.
Yeah. All right, Steffers. I got 3 stories left on my list, and they're all from you.
Oh, great.
Ready?
Yeah, let me hear him.
Answering machine.
Yes.
Ringtone of your boyfriend.
Uh-huh.
And your most famous story.
You want me to tell all 3 of those?
If you don't mind.
Okay.
This is what we're waiting for, Steph.
All right, first one. So it starts with, I work at a doctor's office. I'm a receptionist there. And I hate leaving voice messages on the phone because I always fumble. Whenever I hear that beep, I'm like, ah! So I'm at dinner with my family and my brother.
Yeah.
What?
Real quick. One time you left a message that said, please call us back at, and you left their own phone number on their voicemail because you were reading their information.
Yes!
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I do the worst things because whenever I hear the beep, I freeze, I panic. So I'm telling my family this, and my brother was like, Steph, did you know that you can hit 3 and it erases your voice message and you can start over? And I was like, what? This is gonna change my life. This is awesome. So I was like, let's try it. Let's see if it really works. So Nathan's like, okay. So he calls me on my phone and he's like leaving a voicemail, da 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 da, and then he hits 3 and nothing happens. So then he keeps talking and it's 3, and I was like, Nathan, that doesn't work. And so I was like, oh, whatever. It didn't work on my phone. So literally that next week, I am driving in the car and I have a voicemail from a guy friend who was wanting to ask me out. And I start listening to the voicemail and he goes, hey, Stephanie, this is Patrick. Hopefully he's okay. He's okay if I tell. This is Patrick. I wanted to know what you were, he's like, oh, beep. Hey, Stephanie. And I was like, oh, he doesn't know it doesn't work. He doesn't know it doesn't work. Like, hey, Stephanie, how is work going? I hope you've had a good day at work. I just wanted to ask you out for Friday. Beep. Hey, Stephanie, this is Patrick. And I'm dying. I'm like, oh my gosh, he doesn't know it doesn't work. He did, like, I think I counted 7 messages where he stopped, hit 3, and then started over, and I heard the entire thing. And I immediately called Nathan. I was like, apparently that works for some people, but it does not work on my phone, and you'll never believe what just happened.
Oh my
I
god.
tried it on my phone, and it did not work. But I was very flattered. That's right, that it took him 7 tries to do it just right.
Poor guy.
Did you say yes on the, trial number 7?
I can't remember. I feel like I did. I feel like I felt really bad. But I did end up texting him. Well, he actually ended up realizing and was like, and texted me. He's like, hey, was that voicemail a little weird? And I started laughing so hard. And I was like, 3 doesn't work. He's like, ah. I was like, but you're really sweet. Anyway, that was that one. I saved it for as long as I possibly could because it was so good.
Let me jump in real quick. I just want to say that it was, don't take this the wrong way, Steph. I don't want to say that it was an honor to go on a date with Steffers. But there was also a good chance you were going to get stared down by your grandma if you did.
Yes, that is true.
Steffers might be the only girl that me and Frere and Esplin all took out. And I took Steffers on a date like 6 years after Esplin, and I talked to him. He's like, did she make you pick her up with her parents? I'm like, yeah. She's like, did you have to meet the whole family on the first date? I'm like, yeah. He's like, did she take you on the tour? Yeah. Did they take you to the backyard? Yeah. Was her grandma there? Yeah. Did she stare you down? Yeah. She's got the same protocol.
So bad.
All right, sorry. Keep going, Steph. Next story.
Okay, next story. So I was living in California, and I had broken up with a boyfriend before I moved to California. And anyways, I got out there, I got a new boyfriend. And I had just learned on my phone that you could change a ringtone for certain people. Like you could get a certain ringtone for certain people, so then you knew who was calling you when you heard the ringtone. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this song for my boyfriend. So every time he calls me, then I'm going to know it's him. And it was like this love song kind of a thing. And so I was at his house and I was like, hey, look at this ringtone that I have for you. So I'm like trying to find it and I'm pushing buttons. And I finally pull up this ringtone. And I was like, this is what it says every time that you call. Unbeknownst to me, I had hit something that made this ringtone for every phone that call that comes in. I thought it was just my boyfriend, but I had made it so that all of them, every phone number came in. So I left his house. I'm driving in my car and I have my phone tipped down so I can't see who's calling. I hear the ringtone. So obviously it's my boyfriend. And it's this love song. So I pick up my phone and I belt the song as loud as I can. And it is something like, I can't remember, but it was something like, I just want to hold you tight, and like, like a really lovey thing that I just belted into the phone. Then I hear this older man's voice say, that was interesting. And I'm like, that's not my boyfriend. Oh my gosh. And that is like an old man, an older gentleman, and I don't know who this is on the other side of the phone. I'm like, who did I just like scream a love song to? And he was like, this is Brandon's dad. Brandon's my ex-boyfriend. And it was his stepdad. And he was calling me to ask me about something in San Francisco. And I was like, I thought you were my boyfriend. I thought that ringtone was only for him, but I must have hit something and I didn't know that that was you. I'm so sorry. That's okay. I was mortified. So it was just because it was like not his son anymore. It was a different boyfriend, but I was like, oh my gosh, so embarrassed.
That was Colonel's stepdad, Megan.
Oh yeah. Hey, I know him.
Yes.
He's a big dude. He's like a tall man.
He is. And he's awesome. So I was glad that I was so embarrassed that it was him, but I knew he would take it well. So, I didn't know if it was like my bishop or like somebody that I'd be seeing again really soon. I didn't know.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wait, did you think that you would be seeing your bishop very soon?
At church.
Oh, okay. All right, Steffers, take us home with the grand finale. All
right, this last story. I vowed when this happened I would never tell a soul, and then I ended up telling someone, and now everyone knows. So when we're gonna have to stand up, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, lighting. When I was in high school, I think I was 18 years old, 17 or 18. My brother had just gotten home. My brother Greg had just gotten home from his mission, and he was super bored. And I wanted to go look for swimming suits because it was almost summertime. And so I said, "Hey, Greg, why don't you come with me and I want to go look for a swimming suit at ZCMI when ZCMI still existed." And he's like, "All right, that's fine. Like, cool." So we drive over to ZCMI and we're there. I grab a swimming suit and I go back into the dressing room. For some reason with dressing rooms, I don't know what it is, but I immediately have to go to the bathroom when I'm in a dressing room. And I was putting on my swimming suit. So I was like, I have to go to the bathroom so bad. And it just like, it hit me. So I took my swimming suit off. I put my clothes back on and I ran out of the dressing room and I was like, Greg, I have got to go to the bathroom. I gotta go now. And all of a sudden I'm thinking to myself, I don't want it dripping down my legs. And so I hit the floor like this. What are you doing? Stop. And I am peeing onto the carpet of ZCMI. And Greg is having a panic attack and I can't stop it. And I'm squatting and it's still coming. And we're looking around and there's nobody watching, but there is a puddle that is growing on the carpet of ZCMI's floor. And Greg's like, what are you doing? Stop. I was like, I can't stop. Anyway, so I finally stop and I get up and we were like, let's book it. So I grabbed I think I had a shirt that I wrapped around my waist and we ran out. I don't know if anybody was watching, if there was any cameras, but we left a puddle of on the carpet of ZCMI in the clothes department and we ran back to the truck. Greg wouldn't let me sit on the car, so I had to kneel backwards with my butt out all the way home. I was like, you cannot tell a soul. You cannot tell a soul, because I was 18 years old and I peed my pants in ZCMI. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so Greg vowed he wouldn't, but he called me Peeps every once in a while.
So do you have some mental trigger when you're in a dressing room? You think you're in a bathroom stall?
I must, because I immediately have to go to the bathroom every time I am in a dressing room.
Well, so how long did you go before you told that story? 10 years?
It was years before I ended up telling that story.
She told me on the first date.
Nice.
Love at first sight.
By that time it was out. The story was out. But I'd waited several years, and then we did a truth and dare game at a friend's house, and I wrote it. It was like 2 truths and a lie, and I wrote that I peed my pants on ZCMI carpet floor, and then you had to guess who it was in the room. Nobody guessed me, and then it finally came out, and they're like, "Who did this?"
Well, I'm glad that you didn't keep that with you till your grave.
No, the story's been enjoyed by too many.
Yeah.
You guys, for the first time, at a campfire or something. We're at someone's house around a campfire.
I need your boobs.
Okay, well.
He's recording this.
Guys, every podcast needs that moment when
It's
everything goes
for this
sideways.
one, not this one.
Well, that's debatable, but this one definitely is past his bedtime, and I can't supply the goods.
Well, the good thing is we were saving that story as our grand finale, and we just
All right. You can just name this podcast, I Need Your Boobs.
so you can have her back, Clay.
It's all part of women's health, Tim.
There's way too much laughing coming on from this
Yeah,
call.
that was a good way to end it up with women's health.
Full circle.
All right, well, thanks everyone.
Thanks for getting us together, Tim.
Yep.
Yeah.
Story time is always a good time.
So good.
Yeah. Keep thinking of stories, and we can do this again sometime.
Pee on some more carpets.
Yep. Tell your husbands and your kids I love them, and I say hi.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. See you guys.
Hey, good night. Bye.